Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Just Listen to Yourself podcast. I am your host, Davis, and you are listening to the FCB Radio Network. I want to thank you for tuning in once again. You may have noticed that this episode is pretty late this week. That's because I was having trouble getting inspired. There were a lot of ideas floating around, but I just couldn't land on one. Of course, this is a podcast where I ask you to take your typical talking points on any modern, hot button, controversial issue and draw them out to their logical conclusion. Because I don't think we spend enough time actually listening to what we say. We all know talking points because we watch the news and we watch TV and we hear pithy, P-I-T-H-Y, pithy lines that make us giggle or make us think, and we repeat those, but we don't really think about what they really mean. So it's my theory that a lot of our ideas might change or be refined if we actually take them all the way out to their logical conclusion. So I've done that with a number of subjects on this show, as you well know. Last week, I think we did open marriage, and I got a lot of responses. I got a lot of positive responses to that one. I was so shocked. This week, I want to talk about gender equality because I saw a tweet today from my favorite feminist writer. And that's a bit of sarcasm because I don't have a famous feminist writer. Feminist writers are so angry and boring. But Jessica Valenti writes for Medium. She lives in New York. She's kind of the stereotypical white liberal feminist. And she tweeted out today. I mean, by the way, this is nothing new for Jessica. This is what she does. She's just angry all day long. And she tweets about how angry she is. So it might seem weird that she would tweet this, but this is literally what she does. I mean, it's white privilege, I guess. You can just keep saying the same things over and over again and writing the same things over and over again, and someone will pay you a lot of money to do it. It's incredible. So Jessica Valenti says, there aren't many things that will make you my enemy for life, but only looking at my husband while ostensibly talking to both of us is like top 3. I'm taking that grudge to my grave. Wow. You know, my first thought was, wow, she must lead a really cushy life. Like, if this is what she has to complain about. But you know what? I thought about it. I actually did think about it because she's right. It happens a lot. I mean, I never even noticed it because I guess I don't have a problem with it. But yeah, sure. When we go places, we go to the bank, we go to the store, maybe we take our car in for repairs. We go to, apply for loans together, whatever couple things we're doing. If the person opposite us, like who's trying to sell us as a man, they're going to talk to my husband, I don't mind because I'm not a negotiator and I don't necessarily understand all the new, especially if we're in a sale transaction, you know what I mean? Like, men have their own nuances and women have their own nuances. So I can pick up on things that a woman is saying and doing and what she might really mean because I know, but I can't always read a man. So it's good, to have a man there. And I certainly don't get offended by it. I mean, I know that he knows we're both sitting here. And if I want to talk to him, I'll talk to him. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, this is my thing, Jessica. Like, if you are mad that he's not talking to you, then talk to him. Say something to him. Make him notice you. But this is the scourge of modern feminism. All of you people are supposed to recognize our value and our queendom and how amazing we are as women the second we walk in the room. And if you don't notice, then you're a misogynist. You're a sexist. It's like women don't want to earn that anymore. And that's my opinion. It has to be earned. Womanhood isn't something that is simply bestowed on you. It is something you grow into. I don't think Jessica's grown into womanhood. I don't know if she ever will. Here's my thing. This is why I wanted to really get into this. I don't want to be insulting Jessica Valenti. I'm sorry, Jessica. I don't understand you and I don't understand where you're coming from, but I'm sure we would have fun at drinks some night in Queens. But here's my thing about gender equality. I understand the need. I understand the desire for women to throw off some of the traditional boundaries that we've had. So there was a time when we weren't really allowed to leave the house. We can only work inside the house. We weren't allowed to pursue certain careers. We weren't given a fair shot in certain careers because because the powers that be were men, and men had certain opinions of what women could and couldn't do. And there was a time in American society and global society, I will say global society, because I've spent a lot of time studying American history, and we're going to get into this in a little bit. But the founding fathers had a lot of respect for their wives, and most of them were married to highly intelligent women. In fact, I would say one of the founding mothers of the United States is Abigail Adams. And if you want to know more about Abigail Adams, I cannot recommend enough that you go and read some of her letters to her husband. And it might change your mind about what you think about the history of this country, because she was on the forefront of abolition. She was an abolitionist. She was for women's suffrage. She drove, and her husband respected her so highly. He respected her opinion above any others. A lot of the tools we have for our government these days, a lot of how our government was formed is based on John Adams' respect for his wife. They were her ideas, and she pushed them through, and he was like, well, my wife's always right, So women have actually held a fairly coveted place, historically speaking. We still had to fight for some things to vote. I'm going to talk about that later. I had to fight for the right to vote. But globally speaking, there were times when women were considered to be of lesser intelligence, that they couldn't handle certain things, that they couldn't tolerate the stress of politics, or they couldn't tolerate theology or philosophy. It's why women writers weren't really taken seriously until you had Mary Shelley, until you had Jane Austen, George Eliot. They were women writers who people poo-pooed because it was thought that women couldn't access that part of their imagination, not in the same way men can. So of course, women have had to overcome certain biases and prejudices. But we have come to the point in the United States history, in the history of this country, where we have secured so much victory for women that we're now starting to pull too far in the other direction. And it's causing chaos. We're asking for gender equality. Hear a lot about this wage gap, this pay gap. We're never having an honest conversation about what the pay gap is. So let me tell you, there's no wage gap. Yes, there are men who make more money than women in similar jobs. But when we talk about the pay gap, we are taking apples to oranges and we're comparing them. So here's the thing. All right, here's the thing. Let's say you've got two candidates for a management position, a man and a woman. Now, Jack is 35 years old. He's energetic about the job. He's got all the right qualifications, all the right education. He's married and his wife is expecting. Jill is 35 years old, has all of the qualifications, has everything she needs to do this job well. Jill is 35 years old, she's married, and she's pregnant. You're planning for the next 20 years of your company. You need a manager who is going to be there for the next 20 years, who's going to grow into the company. Maybe you're grooming this person to become a leader. You know that Jack isn't going to have to go anywhere to have that baby. His wife's going to have the baby. He might take some paternity leave, which, maybe it's a week, whatever you offer. If you offer anything, Jill's going to have to leave for months. And when Jill leaves, you're going to have to fill her position temporarily. So not only are you going to be paying Jill while she's out on her maternity leave, which could be 3 to 6 months, depending on what state you live in. Not only is Jill out for that 3 to 6 months, you're paying her, you're paying all of her health insurance, you're paying all of her benefits for 3 to 6 months. Then you have to take someone else in. You have to train that person, and you have to pay that person to do the job of another person you're paying who doesn't work there. If you are a smaller business, if you're not like Walmart or Costco, if you're just a mid-size kind of small business, how do you deal with that? You look at Jack and you look at Jill. You say, I like Jill. She's really smart, but I'm going to lose her. I'm going to lose her in a few months, and Jack's going to be at work. So I'm going to give Jack this position. That's what happened. That's the statistic that is being thrown into that number of, oh, there's this wage gap. Women make 77 cents to the dollar. They're including all those women who didn't get the promotion, who didn't get the pay raise based on what they can bring to the business. Also, women are more likely to leave their office jobs when they start a family. That doesn't even, I don't even need to read you statistics on that. Obviously, if you work wherever, if you work, somebody who got pregnant and left the job after, of course, they took all their maternity leave. I don't know why anyone doesn't call that stealing. I honestly don't. I'm a woman. I get it. Having babies is hard. Raising kids is hard. And it's really nice if you're at a job and someone offers you maternity leave, Of course, now in most places it's mandatory. So your boss doesn't have a choice, which is another reason that perhaps women don't get hired into positions that they deserve, because we demand so much accommodation for a woman. Put in breastfeeding, breastfeeding stations so you can pump at work. Maternity leave, 3 to 6 months of paying somebody who's not producing for you. I mean, those are nice things, don't get me wrong. But when you start requiring them, what happens is a type of shadow banning. Have you heard about shadow banning on Twitter? A lot of conservatives complain about it. They say, I'm getting shadow banned. It's not an outright ban. You're not being outright blacklisted. But the powers that be behind the scenes change the algorithm so people can't see what you're tweeting. People can't respond to what you're tweeting. People can't like what you're tweeting. So it's not really being seen. You're typing in and it looks like it's going out there into the world, but only a few people are seeing it. That's called a shadow ban. But that's what happens to women in the workplace when we start demanding to be treated, specially because we are women. Which is what we're asking, right? We're like, we want gender equality, but what we really want is for you to give us preference because we're women. What ends up happening is the employer, when they sit down with their hiring committee, or maybe it's just them, they're sitting down at the end of the day talking to their spouse or talking to their best friend, and they're like, I've got Jack and I've got Jill, I can only hire one person, but Jill's pregnant. Or Jill says she wants to get pregnant. Jill's 35. She just got married. She's probably going to start a family, and I can't afford to be paying 2 employees for one job. So it's got to be Jack. Now, keep in mind, that's actually illegal. But sure, a lot of things are illegal, but behind the scenes, we're like you can't really claim that pencil you bought. You can't really write that off on your taxes because you bought that pencil for your kid at the book fair. But, you do write it off on your taxes as something you needed for work. Like, we do stuff like that all the time. So technically it is illegal for the boss to say, I don't want to hire Jill because she could get pregnant. But that's the result when you force people like that, like a small business owner, into a corner and say, you must give me special treatment because I'm a woman. You end up making it harder for women down the road to get employment. So this wage gap is not real. It's based on the difference between men and women. Women prefer to leave to start families. Not every woman, but enough to skew that statistic. By the way, why should I apologize if women want to go? Why do I have to qualify that remark? I get so sick of this. God, if you want to work, of course, if you're a woman and you want to work, and you don't want to stay at home and raise your family, like, of course you can do that, obviously. Like, what's wrong with leaving the workplace and going home to raise your kids? Why do we have to apologize for that? Why is that insulting to say that most women prefer to leave the workplace and go home and raise their families? When did we decide that was something that we should be ashamed of? There's no greater calling than raising a family. Women, let me take a tangent here. I've always wanted to say this because I'm 17, almost 18 years into this parenting thing. I'm 21 years into this marriage thing. I've raised 2 kids, getting ready to send one off to the nest. If you just had a baby and you are tortured by the thought of dropping your baby off at daycare every day, you miss your baby and you wish you could stay home to raise your baby, quit your job and stay home and raise your baby. Do it. There's a reason why it's so hard for you to drop your baby off at daycare every day. There's a reason why. That is your body telling you that you are not supposed to be separated right now. So if you can, I feel like I can hear people screaming at me through these headphones already. My imaginary listeners. I can't afford to. I get it. Calm down. If you're a single mom, I get it. You can't. I mean, I know plenty of single moms who stay home with their kids. But they're on welfare. So you've got to, you could do it, but you're giving up a lot to do it. But this is not addressed at women who just simply don't have the choice, for whatever reason you're in your circumstance. This is not addressed to those women. So chill. But a lot of women who are married do have the choice. And I have had friends who are like, I can't afford it. I do need maternity leave. We should be offering paid maternity leave to women. It's pro-family. This is a new conservative talking point that's come up, which I think is weird. It's not conservative at all. The idea of forcing people to pay for your choices. If you choose to have a family, it should not be your employer's problem. You're the one who should have to work that into your life and figure out how it fits. But I know I have a lot of women friends who are like, I can't stay home. Like, I can't. We can't afford it. Oh, really? Well, can you sell one of your new cars? Oh, I can't sell this. I need this SUV. We go back and forth to practices. There's so much equipment. Can you downgrade your house? Can you sell your house and buy a smaller house or rent? Well, we bought this house because it has a backyard for Jalen and Braylon and Kaylin. And we bought this house because it has lots of space. It has a pool, and the kids are swimmers. And we just thought this house would be good for our family. Okay. Can you take Jalen and Braylon and Kaylin out of private school? Can you shop at Walmart? Can you cut back on extracurricular activities? Can you see what I'm saying? Like, yes, you can stay home. You have to change your mind about what you need. I stayed home with a husband who made like a lower middle class salary. We made some sacrifices to do it. I'm not saying you need to do this, but one thing we did is we lived in the hood. We lived good in the hood, because we were responsible with our money. We were responsible with the things we chose to invest in, and we knew what our limits were. So no, we couldn't live in the fancy suburbs. We couldn't live in downtown Chicago and one of us stay home and raise our kids. So we chose differently. You can choose differently. If you want to stay home and raise your baby, stay home and raise your baby. You will never get this time back. You will never get it back. And you will look back and you will regret it. I promise you. You will. You'll feel sad. I hate it when women are like, I actually find it condescending when working moms are like, I don't know how you do it. I could never stay at home with little Justin all day long. We'd kill each other. First of all, dang, you must really dislike your child. I love my children. Are they a pain in my ass? Yeah. But there is something so connecting about being the first person your kids see when they walk in from school, to know that you're just there. I mean, when I started working again, my kids were a little older. They didn't need me every day. They could let themselves in the house and do stuff. And I was working for a while, and my daughter, at one point, she's 12. At one point, she was like, I miss having you home. Now, she doesn't hardly talk to me after school. She comes in, she gets her snacks, she goes to her room, does her homework, and then, watches YouTube or chats with her friends online. Like, she don't care about me. But it was just to know that I'm here. But when you say, oh, I can never do that. First of all, it's like you're too good to be in the house, But second of all, you don't have to like this job to do it. Like, what's this idea that you're supposed to be at home and just loving it? I do know women who love being at home. I live in the fancy suburbs of Orange County, and believe me, there's a lot of princesses around here who feel it's a status symbol to be able to stay home. And in a way it is. It's a luxury to stay home, certainly. Not every woman can. And I appreciate what I've been given and what my husband has done to allow our kids to be raised in a home where mom is home every day. And that's not all I've done. I've done other things, obviously. I'm in my home right now waiting for my kids to come home from school, and I'm working, So I've done things that are fulfilling for me, but I chose things that logistically I could do and also be here for my kids during the day. Anyways, I say all this to say that there's this idea that working moms have, that like stay-at-home moms are just so good at what they do and we just like love doing it. I'm like, no, I hate being a stay-at-home mom. I don't like it. I've never really liked it. That doesn't mean that I can't do it or shouldn't do it. I mean, I'm a parent. It's literally my job to sacrifice for my kids. Your kids are always going to be better off with you in the home. They're always going to, do you hear me? I know that's controversial, and I know there's women out there screaming at me right now. Your kids are always going to be better off with you at home. So if you have immense guilt over taking your child to daycare every day and they're crying and you can't stand leaving them and you feel bad, you can't see them during the day, you get home at 6, 7 o'clock and it's just barely enough time to cook dinner, read a book, and you either have to send them to bed or they run around like a maniac all night long because you haven't had enough time with them. And then they don't have any structure and they don't have any discipline and they don't have any regularity. And they start acting up at school. They start acting up at daycare because they miss you. If that rips your heart out every day, then sit down with your spouse and make a plan and figure out how you can stay home. You will never make a better choice in your life, I promise. And this is coming from a mom who hates being a stay-at-home mom, okay? I'm not good at it. You look at my house, it's a mess. I don't cook, guys. I don't know how to cook. My mom was a chef. And when she got home from work every day, the last thing she wanted to do was teach me to cook. So I can't cook. I don't do craft projects. I don't do people's homework. Mom does not do homework. I did homework. I graduated school. Mom don't do homework. Yarn your own. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just trying to tell you that I'm not a traditional stay-at-home mom, but I'm a proud stay-at-home mom. You don't have to be good at this job to be good at this job. Do you know what I mean? This is all I'm saying. And feminism robs us of that. Tells us we have to apologize for those instincts to stay home and nurture our children. So this idea of gender equality, here's the other thing that bothers me about it. I understand we want to get paid well for doing the same jobs as men. And there is sexism. There is such a thing, especially when men get together, they egg each other on and it can become an unwelcome situation. I know of a lot of women who work in a man's world who will tell you, whatever that man's world is, if it's corporate, if it's like, the fire station or whatever, they'll tell you like it's isolating because women have a way of speaking to each other and men have a way of speaking to each other. And sometimes you're just kind of out of the loop. You're not one of the guys. You're never going to be one of the guys. So here's what happens when women demand gender equality. Now, let's define gender equality as it is defined by modern feminists these days. Gender equality is defined as being the same as men. And I think that robs women of our power, to be honest. I think gender equality, the way it's meant today, meaning equality of outcome, not equality of value. Right? We're equally valued. We're equally valuable. God created us both to live in harmony, to help each other, right? We're equally valuable. But feminism says we need all of the outcomes to be equal as well. But I think what that does is it disadvantages women because it's a man's world. It is a man's world. But women have been given certain tools to navigate the man's world. And when we give up those tools, and we try to compete as men, we'll always lose. Like a woman's never going to outman a man. Do you know what I mean? Maybe Billie Jean King can beat what's-his-face one time in the 70s in tennis. But we're not going to have a million Billie Jean Kings that win over men every time. It just doesn't work that way. Women don't outperform men when they try to act like men. Women who try to act like men rob themselves of the power. And when I say act like men, I don't mean act masculine. I mean like take on the qualities of a man. Like in the corporate boardroom, for instance. Let me, for instance, this. Let me persuade you why a woman's power is most powerful when she embraces her feminine power, not when she tries to be one of the boys. If you're in a corporate setting, let's say you're a female, like you're a CEO or you're, a VP, you got a really high position. And when you get to that level, a lot of it's men, because men, again, don't have to go off and have the babies and raise the kids, and they can spend a lot of their time in the corporate environment climbing the ladder. But some women do make it up that ladder for whatever reasons. And a lot of women in corporate America will tell you, I've got to shut off my emotion, because everyone says, don't get emotional. That's why Captain Marvel sucked, because she was just kind of the stone face. I saw a trailer for Captain Marvel last night. This is why it's on my mind. And everyone in the trailer is like looking at Captain Marvel and going, you've got to control your emotions. And it's a commentary on how women are always told that we're emotional when we get angry or when we get sad. And so the result was this hero was made emotionless because it was considered a bad thing. Like, it wasn't like she turned on the emotion and then the emotion became what made her a powerful being and a powerful woman superhero. The whole film, she's like turning off her emotion. The whole thing was that she was proving to everyone that she could control her emotions, and that just because she's a woman doesn't mean she's emotional. I thought that was like a backwards message. No, her emotions should be her superpower. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us special. A woman in the boardroom shouldn't have to be cold and sterile and tell gross fart jokes and whatever men do. Grown men still tell fart jokes. Whatever men do in their business meetings and their super secret, corporate business meetings, whatever. She shouldn't have to do that. Why can't a woman walk in with a tight skirt and a low cut shirt and negotiate the hell out of a deal? Why can't she? I have seen the most movement. I have gotten the most done in the corporate world. I used to work in the nonprofit world. I can't tell you how influential it was just to put on a nice dress and a pair of heels and walk into the mayor's office and know that the mayor is like staring at my legs the whole time. But you know what else the mayor is doing? He's saying yes. He's nodding his head. He's saying yes because I'm so cute. And men are so dumb. Sorry, men. I'm sorry. But you're ruled by a certain part of your body. And that's an advantage for women. Why can't I'm not saying you have to be like, who's someone sexy, who's considered super sexy these days, like a Megan Fox or, a Jennifer Lopez. Like, you don't have to be this raging siren. I'm just saying that there's some unquantifiable power in your femininity, in going in and exploiting your curves and exploiting the weaknesses of men as a negotiating tactic in corporate America, to get what you want. I don't understand why we think that's a bad thing. When did we decide that's a bad thing? Who decided for us? If you go into the CEO meeting and you're in a room full of men and you've got to negotiate this deal, if you negotiate like a man, if you try to be a man, you're always going to be outmanned by men. Every time women try to act like men, they lose. Isn't that interesting, though, that the opposite is not true? Every time men try to act like women, they win. Women are always on the losing end of this equality thing. Isn't that so funny? No, I'm serious. Think about it. Anytime men act like women, they win. Think about the transgender athlete thing. I brought this up before in another episode. We're not having arguments over women transitioning to men and then going into men's sports and dominating those sports. We're not having those conversations. You know why? Because women can't do that. Because you can change your body cosmetically, but you can't change your gender. And so you're that size, you're a woman going into a man's world, you lose. But men who transition to women and go into women's athletics dominate women's athletics. Always. It's always the women who lose. And then when the women try to speak up and say, I don't want to be bigoted. I don't want you to think that I'm callous and I don't care, but this feels unfair. Oh, homophobe, you transphobe. See, we get shouted down. Women in the women's space, whenever we welcome a man in there, we get shouted down. We're the losers. Every time. You can't put on blackface and shuffle around and pretend to be a black person and call that entertainment. But you can put on makeup and false eyelashes and fake boobs and imitate women, and people will celebrate it as an art form. Women are always on the losing end. That's because we think we're supposed to be equal to men. Jessica Valenti, that feminist author, thinks that her and her husband should have equal outcomes instead of just being equally valued. Here's the thing. When you feel your value as a human being, you don't need to run around telling everybody else how much you're worth. This is how I know women like Jessica Valenti are pained inside. Like, she's suffering. She is suffering from gross insecurity, because it's like when women say, like, especially us black women will say this a lot. I am a strong black woman. And any man that doesn't like us, we say, you just can't handle a strong black woman. You just can't handle a strong woman. Men can't handle a strong woman. Well, maybe it's not that you're a strong woman. Maybe it's just you're a bitch. Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe you're just being a bitch. Because strong women don't have to run around telling everyone how strong they are. Do you know what I mean? Only insecure women do that. Strong women don't have to demand respect. People just respect them because they have an aura. They have an air. They have a reputation that precedes them. They come off in a certain way. They exploit their feminine qualities to be a respected person, to be a successful person. And they don't demand things from you. Those things are given freely because she already walks in with that energy. But a lot of women walk into the room these days with the energy of, I'm going to be a bitch to anybody who doesn't automatically respect my authority as a woman. Being a woman is cool. I don't want to be like a man. We shouldn't want to be like men. We're going to lose that game, A, and it throws everything out of order. There's nothing wrong with being a part of a couple and the salesman talks to your husband and looks him in the eye. Great. Do you know what? There's a power in being invisible. Learn what that is and use it. There's a power in being feminine. There's a power in being able to make a man do what you want him to do. Men fight wars over this stuff. Men fight wars over us. They fight neighbors over us. Men climb mountains and build cars, and it's not for them, it's for you. It's for you women. Think about your closest friends who have been in the craziest relationships, and think about your closest guy friends, and think about all of the dumb stuff they did for that girl. We're so powerful, but we give up that power when we say that it's not valuable. Like, feminists are the ones that are making misogyny worse. Do you understand they're making misogyny worse? They're making sexism worse because they're the ones that are saying what's traditionally feminine is bad. They're the ones that are shaming themselves. They're shaming us. They're shaming women and saying to be a traditional, quote, type of woman is embarrassing and you should be more like a man. No, I think true feminism is being more like a woman. My son has a cousin who's the same age as him, a girl, and they used to be very close when they were younger, and we went on a trip to Vegas, and I admonished him for not holding the door for her when she was walking through, and he said, gender equality, Mom. He was 13. They were 13 at the time. Gender equality, Mom. I don't have to hold the door. It's gender equality. And I looked at my niece and I said, pay attention. This is what modern feminism does. It takes away everything cool about being a girl. What is wrong with having a guy open the door for you? It's nice. It's preferential. I like being treated preferentially, to be honest. I think people who don't like being treated preferentially are white. Like, that's white privilege. You want to go back and listen to my white privilege episode? That's white privilege. The idea of, like, you know already that everything you do is going to be accepted and it's going to be successful. And you know already that you are a part of this society and you belong there. So you don't want that special treatment. Well, the rest of us trying to work our way up that ladder would love some special treatment. So I'm not going to throw away the power I have in my femininity just because modern feminists say I need to be more like a man. I don't want to be more like a man. I want to be more like a woman, because that's where my power is. It's so powerful. One of the things that really changed the dynamic of male-female relationships in this country was women being able to vote. And it used to be that women, I think actually women had more power in their vote when they couldn't vote, because they were considered to be the more influential members of the family. So what would happen is when politicians would campaign, they wouldn't campaign to the men. They wouldn't campaign. They would do their door-to-door, just kind of the way we still do it now. There's no replacement for just door-to-door, face-to-face contact. So they do their door-to-door campaigns. And I'm talking like, at the birth of this country, at the birth of our government. And the people who were the campaign workers would ask to speak to the lady of the house, not the man of the house, to the lady of the house, because the lady of the house was the vote, not the man. The man just got to go and cast it. But it was generally accepted as just kind of commonplace knowledge that the woman of the house was really the one casting the vote, because she was the more powerful figure in the home. Not only that, but politics affects the home. And who knows better how politics are going than the woman in the home? Because everything's affecting her. She's on the front lines every day. Husband goes off to work. He closes himself in his office and he does whatever he does all day. His mind is on that. But the woman is picking up the kids. She's giving the lessons. She's fixing the meals. She's buying the supplies for the house. She's worrying about the weather that's coming and how we'll face the weather and how we'll pay the electric bill. And she is there on the front lines every single day. So there's no one more informed about politics than the woman. Well, we got the right to vote, and I'm glad for it. But it did change the power dynamics of the male to female relationship. And it made us kind of equal partakers in it, but we had to give up a little bit of power to do it. I don't know. I'm still pretty influential with my husband's vote, I guess. 2016 was the first time we voted separately. I was really mad because typically he's just like, who are we voting for? And then I give him the list. But as you all know, 2016 was different, and I was pretty upset that we were getting to Donald Trump, and my husband was like, well, I'm not voting for Hillary Clinton. And he went and pulled the lever for Trump, and that was the first time we ever disagreed. I was like, what? We are not voting for Trump. He was like, no, you're not voting for Trump. I'm voting for Trump. He was like, I don't want a President Hillary Clinton. So we got past it. You're wondering who all those black people out there that support Trump are. One of them's my husband. I still love him. But here's the thing, we're giving up a piece of what makes our power so powerful when we demand to be treated the same as men. We give up what is so unique about us. There's a power in what the female body can do that the male body can't do. There's a power in being the bringers of life. There's a power in being the person who literally makes a family for a man. There's a power in being that person, and modern feminism has told us to treat that as a weakness. And I think that's misogynist. I think that's sexist. I think that's pathetic. I think we should feel free to embrace all of what we believe to be the feminine. And isn't it like there's a lot of activists out there who'll be like, stop enforcing gender norms. Oh, it's a gender norm because it's pink, it's a girl, and it's blue, it's a boy. Well, how come we're not allowed to enforce gender norms except when a little boy wants to tell me that he's really a little girl? Oh, how do you know he wants to be a little girl? Because he likes dresses. Oh, let's put him on puberty blockers and let's cut off his penis when he gets old enough and give him a pair of frilly panties and let him grow his hair long, and oh, poof, he's a girl. Oh, gender norms are fine there. We don't want to enforce gender norms. See, all this is chaos. It's all chaos. It's all BS, everybody. It's BS. Don't believe this. There's no equality in being the same. If men and women are the same, then women are going to lose. Women are going to lose that battle. We will always lose to men if we're trying to be like men. By the way, why is that the standard that we're setting for equality? Women shouldn't be so emotional. Women should be allowed to climb that corporate ladder. Women can be powerful. Think of every movie in the last 2 years you've seen where it's some badass woman who has, she doesn't want to get married. She doesn't like kids. She's cold. She's sterile. She's tough. She's a tough girl. And she can beat up guys. She's 90 pounds, but she's got her karate moves. She can beat up anybody. She's like a guy. Why is that the standard that we're saying is the standard that means equality? Even feminists have made femininity the enemy. Even feminists have made women the enemy. We're not supposed to be more like us. They're not supposed to be more like us. We're supposed to be more like them. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. There is power in womanhood, and it is unique, and it is glorious. And don't let any man tell you any different. And don't let any woman tell you that you need to be ashamed for embracing everything that your femininity means and using that to get ahead. Don't let any woman tell you that that's wrong. Those are the tools you've been given. This is the other thing that modern feminism does. I'm going to be careful how I put this. It demands we tamp down our natural instincts. Okay, so it's a man's world, and one of the tools we've been given to navigate a man's world is intuition. But women are always told to ignore their intuition. I'll give you a for instance. For instance, if you're walking down the street late at night and there's a man walking towards you, or let's say he's walking behind you, you can sense him, you can feel him. I think every woman's been in this situation at some point or another, whether or not it was real, but you can feel him, you can sense him, and you want to move to the other side of the street. But when you look back, you see that man's black, or he's Hispanic, or, he's some racial minority. And you look back and you say, if I cross the street now, then I'm a racist. If I cross the street now, I look like an a-hole. And so you don't cross the street. Well, what happens if that man is a criminal? We're actually training little girls right now to ignore their intuition based on cultural bias, based on, what we think is appropriate, based on, whatever, all of our modern sensibilities. It's like, instead of telling this girl, you should pay attention to your instincts, because that's natural. That's a womanly intuition is real, and it has helped many women survive. It is a survival. It is a survival tactic. It has evolved as a survival tool, and we're telling girls to put that survival tool away in case you maybe look like a bigot. We are actively training young women to ignore their instincts, to ignore their intuition. And that's one of the most powerful tools a woman has in navigating this world. And it always has been. And you'll hear historical woman after historical woman say the same thing. I just felt like this was the right thing. I just knew that my child was in trouble. I just had a feeling that my husband should not take this trip. I just knew. Women say it all the time, don't we? I just knew. Why are we trying to pretend that that's not real, and that it's not coveted, and that it's not powerful? Stop trying to be like men. We don't need to be like men. We're going to lose that battle. The only way we're going to win equality, true equality, is if we act like women and we embrace being women. And we don't apologize for being women. Modern feminism has ruined the privilege of womanhood. So I don't think gender equality, the way we mean it these days, is what we should be aiming for. We should be aiming for equally valued, and then let the chips fall where they may. All right, gone on long enough. I don't know if you guys are noticing the runtime creeping up. each week, episode to episode. But as I get more comfortable talking to you guys, I feel like I have more to say each week. I'll really try to pare it back on a future episode, because I know you guys have other things to do with your time. But I do appreciate you listening to Just Listen to Yourself. Listen, it would help me so much if you would go and give me a positive rating and review on iTunes. You have no idea the difference that makes in just the search and the statistics and the clicks and all of it. So I appreciate everyone who's taken the time so far to review, to hit that 5-star rating. It means so much. And tell a friend about this show. If you've heard something that's interesting and has made you think, tell a friend, recommend it, and then hit me up on Twitter at realkiradavis, same on Facebook. Thank you to FCB Radio Network and to all the listeners out there. We'll see you next time. Until then, just don't forget to stop every once in a while and listen to the things you're saying. Bye, everybody.